Hello, here's another video for Sailing Vessel Cable Bay. We've been working flat out on Cable Bay, doing various jobs, but this one in particular was one that I had been dreading tackling, but after seeing others doing it and obviously doing all the YouTube research, I finally felt that I had the confidence to tackle the project. In this clip you can see Colin Jones and myself walking down next to Cable Bay. I remember rubbing the paint and asking him whether he thought I could possibly polish it, and looking back now, I can't believe how naive I was that I thought that that would even be possible. That paint was dead. Okay, so here we go again with my route planner. You'll eventually see that there's about 29 different waypoints that I had to hit as I made my way to Garden Island. I was heading for the Small Boat Club, which is one of the oldest sailing clubs in Adelaide, I believe. You can see me here leaving early in the morning, and the reason for that is that you have to plan your tides. The tides are critical as far as getting down from Barker's Inlet and then making your way down that part of the Port River. And the reason being is that it's quite shallow, and you have to play it pretty carefully, otherwise you could run aground. And later on in the video you'll actually see a boat that did run aground. Charlie was enjoying the trip, I was enjoying the trip. Here I'm looking around, probably not knowing what I'm actually looking for, just making sure that I wasn't going to run over somebody's fishing net or things like that. Beautiful out here this time of the morning, lovely views, and it's so nice being part of the nature that this part of Adelaide holds. I didn't know about it. Interestingly enough, you'll see some of the mangroves. We actually get to explore some of those later on. And those mangroves are apparently the most southerly positioned mangroves in the world. You won't find any mangroves further south than the Port River in Adelaide. Now, looking at little Charlie here, he must have been thinking, why don't we just have a house? It would be so much easier. Just over here we passed that boat that I was talking about that did run aground. I'll tell you a bit more about it later. The next clip you can see me approaching Garden Island, or Small Boat Club in Garden Island, and I'd never been here ever before, so I'm really just finding my way here. Luckily Steve Malloy saw me coming in and he directed me to the berth where I would start my stay at the Small Boat Club in Garden Island. Very beautiful place, very rustic, and different from the marina that I had been at for the last 2 years. But immediately put your foot on the dock and you feel that yeah, I could be here. This is going to be comfortable and it's going to be good. I did quite a lot of work on that finger there, and here's a nice drone shot of us coming in to show you around the place. They've got a beautiful bar, and the facilities there are really good. Around this table and this big fire pit, which you'll see in a second, and we sat and drank bourbons and beers until late at night. Erin and Molly and Darren, well actually the two Darrens, were telling some stories. Man, I'm good at listening to stories, I'm not very good at telling them, but there were some funny stories that come out. Sailors are funny people. Okay, so eventually all that had to come to an end, and we had to start getting on to some serious work. Over here you can see the working dock of the Small Boat Club. They've got two slips. One was taken up with a pont, and the other one was taken up with a guy who had some emergency repairs to be done to the hull of his boat, and he kept me out of the slip area for a while they were getting that done. It wasn't an emergency repair, and slowly but surely we got things going. And here you can see the boys actually getting the cradle ready. So eventually I did get the opportunity to go to the other finger, and I used a different cradle, which I'm actually quite happy about because it gave me a better work platform than what the original would have done. Okay, so once the cradle's in position, it's been pushed into the end of the ramp, you just have to sit back and wait for the tide to come in. I had 2 goes at this. The nighttime tide was at 1.8 meters, and when I approached the cradle, I actually ran aground probably about 5 meters short of the cradle. But then when I backed back out of that, luckily I was able to get off the mud pretty easily. Back out. The next tide was only 200 mil higher, so it was from 1.8, it went up to 2 meters, but that was sufficient for me to get onto the finger. I cleared that little bank that I'd got stuck on the night before, and I was able to come out. I used a roll and tip method, which I'd seen on YouTube. Unfortunately, it didn't work very well for me. I think you need to have 2 people there. You need to use bigger rollers and have bigger coverage of the area that you're painting. But the idea is that once you roll, then you remove the bubbles in the paint with a tipping brush. As I say, it didn't work for me. And it's meant that the finish on the boat isn't, it's not a masterpiece, but you know what, as a first go, it's not a bad effort. And so it went for 21 days, I think it was eventually, 21 days of bloody hard work. Many sunrises, many sunsets, all the time staying in the car on the rooftop tent with the kitchen out the back and all this kind of thing. We kept at it, kept plugging away, and we've made the most of our time at Garden Island. I think the most satisfying job was peeling the tape off. If I have to say, there was one thing that was satisfying, was actually pulling this tape off of the boat and revealing the straight lines. And I think as far as the thing that made the biggest difference, strangely enough, it was the anti-foul underneath. I loved the look of the boat with the new anti-foul. And then obviously the prop speed as well, which really looked stunning, and the new anodes. Now the next day after all of this, the boat was finally ready to be pushed back into the water. So it did give me the opportunity to have another look around the marina and see some of the quirky boats around here. This next one really made me laugh. If anybody knows what the casting couch is all about, you'll understand what I mean. And then there's this beautiful wooden boat which sadly is just rotting away. There's quite a few of these stories, including this one, which I said I'd talk to you a bit more about. Turns out that we had some disgruntled members of the club who decided that that was it, they were on their way. Unfortunately, they were both pissed, and they ended up running aground, and the boat leaned over the wrong way despite the advice they were being given, and a porthole was open, and the rest sadly is history. This boat will probably crumble away into nothing where it lies right now. I did mention about the mangroves and the opportunity to go and explore, which is what we were doing here. I'd had 21 days of bloody hard work, and this was finally the opportunity to actually go and explore some of these mangroves. I've never been in mangroves in my life before. Charlie was pretty nervous. I gave him a fright there, and he spun around and looked at me as if to say, what the hell are you doing? Anyways, we finally do make our way out of these mangroves. It's a bit of a warren. You end up not sure where you are. But what a beautiful afternoon, what a beautiful sunset. And even Charlie, I mean, I don't know what's going on in his little head over there. Must be dinner, looking at what's coming out of his mouth. But yeah, we had a good time. The next day was going to be the big day. The next day was the day that the boat was going back in the water. This day is often called splash day, but as you see in my case, it was more like a soak till you float day. You get pushed back into the water, or the cradle gets pushed back into the water with your boat on top of it, and then you just sit back and wait for the tide to come in, which happens slowly over the course of the morning, and eventually your boat just lifts itself up off of the cradle, and then you are safe to take her out of there. In that last photo you can see as she just started to float there. I moored up with a chain mooring just overnight, and the next day was the reverse of our trip that we'd taken 3 weeks before, and that was to get ourselves back to 35 South Marina in North Haven in Adelaide, 16.8 nautical miles, and it was just the reverse of what we'd already done, but beautiful nonetheless, and yeah, quietly feeling quite chuffed as to what we'd achieved over the last, or what I'd achieved over the last few days or few weeks. Now in the next few series of photos, a few weeks have gone by, and I've actually managed now to get the sign writing done, and there's some nice shots of the boat with her sign writing done, and that means that I've now got the Southern Cross towards the aft section of the boat. And the idea with the blue curve is that it lines up with the mizzen mast, which is the second mast on my ketch boat. The back view of this boat I love. It's probably the thing that caught my eye when I first started looking for a boat, and the wine glass shape of the transom was what caught my eye, and obviously, you know, other aspects of it being a ketch and having an aft cabin as well. But yeah, we've done it. This is the boat floating just off of Noarlunga, Port Noarlunga, just behind the reef. And that's it. That's the boat's hull painted, the anti-foul done, new prop speed applied, new anodes done as well, and something that I'd had on the cards as a job to do for almost 2 years, and finally I was done.